Okay, I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
So let me just read the instructions. Welcome, everyone. If this is your first time joining us virtually, you will notice that you are currently muted, and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting, except for the committee co-chairs, David and Anthony, and any presenters as we move through the agenda. As we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to the react icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button, not the wave or thumbs up, as those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you are calling in on the phone, it is *9 to raise hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you need to go to the participants section where you will find the raise hand feature there. Please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. Chat me, I'm here for support. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome everyone to the Landmarks Committee meeting in June. We are going to look at 4 applications tonight. We're going to judge them based on the context and appropriateness. The individuals representing the applications will present. We'll then go to the public for comments. We'll then go to the committee, and we'll then develop a resolution, which will go to the full board on Wednesday for a full board approval or disapproval of our resolution. So the first application tonight is 210 East 62nd Street, Treadwell Farm Historic District. Transient Architecture and Design. Neo-Gothic style building designed by F.S. Barnes and constructed in 1870. Applications for street facade restoration, roof addition, and rear yard extension. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Where are you? I need to see you. Okay, I see you. And your name is?
Keitaro Ne. I'm with Architecture and Design.
So if you want to share your screen, we'll, it's your opportunity.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn on the screen share and pull up our presentation. All right, can everyone see the presentation? Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay, so is it all right if I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So basically, I don't know if everyone knows the history behind this project, but there's been all kinds of delays in the past, and then COVID and all of that hit. So to make a long story short, our previous landmarks permit lapsed, so we're now applying for a new permit, and this sort of gives us the opportunity to start fresh and hopefully try to get this project going on a better footing. So with that, I'm going to run through the project. What we're going to do is present sort of in 3 parts. The first part being the facade restoration of the front street facade. The second part will be the rear yard extension, and then the third part will be the roof addition. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. This is a pre-existing condition, pre-construction condition of the building, and this is the state of the facade as it is now. Okay, so the first portion will be talking about the street facade. This is just a general overview of the entire block, and this is our building here. This is the 1939 tax photo of what the building, oops, used to look like. And this is a pre-construction photo. So what we want to do with the street facade is basically a full historic restoration. It was sort of half completed. But what we intend to do is to restore back all of the windows surround, the details around the windows surround, and as well as replace all the windows to a wood frame, painted wood frame, double hung window 9/9, basically conforming to the historic photos from the past. Continue. This is sort of a detailed elevations showing what we propose to do. We want to also make sure that every window is aligned with our neighbors, so it gives a continuous street fabric in front. These are just additional images of what used to be there pre-construction. One of the things we want to do with the areaway is just sort of clean things up. And we're going to excavate this portion, not too unlike our neighbor. So our neighbor has an excavated areaway. We want to just sort of follow that look. And we'll be proposing, as before, a low skylight that will let some natural light into the cellar. And we'll also propose a sort of historically appropriate low metal fence painted along the front, and as well as putting a new door and some lighting. So this was all proposed in our original application, and we just, we want to proceed accordingly on that. The second part is the rear yard extension, and let me go through this. Just to give a background again, this was a pre-construction photo, and then this was a photo even I think the prior owners had removed, but it was some kind of bay window. This was a pre-construction context photo. So this is our project here. And as you can see from these photos, it's sort of a hodgepodge of things that happen in the back, whether they're like greenhouses, either on the roof or in the lower levels. Some of them have like pretty substantial additions. Our neighbor over here has this is part of the high-rise development. It's like a big brick box. So that's the context of what we're working with on the block. These are just more pre-construction details of the rear facade. This is currently as it is today. So I probably had said this before, but all of this construction actually happened without me being notified. So I came in after the fact, and now we're trying to correct all of this. But yeah, this is how it is today, and what we're going to do. Well, I'll get into it on the roof addition part, but all of these inaccuracies from the previous approval will be corrected. Particularly that this cornice line will need to match our east neighbor. And this roof addition will be brought down. Give you this diagram. This elevation shows a bit more detail. So this is a pre-construction elevation. These two images, these two elevations are from our previous approval, where we proposed like a metal mesh doors or shutters, basically, with sliding glass windows behind. What we're proposing here is we're gonna try to simplify the rear facade and create just a very understated glass and bronze type of window system, and then with the zinc still in place for the sides. The other thing we're going to do, let's see if I can zoom in here. Yeah, so we would like to restore back this top floor, set back and flush with our neighbor to the east, restoring the brick cornice and aligning everything with our neighbor to the east. The only difference being if these were windows, we're probably going to lower them a few inches and turn them into French doors. That would be probably the only difference between this facade and the previous. Okay. Back to this is the side elevation, just showing our rear view, rear yard addition. And this is the approved profile, and this is what we're proposing. So we're not changing, we're generally not changing the massing of the rear yard from what it was before. These are just additional examples of sort of modern rear yard designs that are in the Upper East Side and as well as in our historic district. So, and these are only a few that we found, but I'm sure there are probably more. But this is just to show precedence that it's not uncommon to have rear yard like modern type of facades like the one we're proposing. This is just an image showing how the rear yard will feel like with the proposed design. So again, this will be it's basically aluminum frame with a bronze type of PVDF coating. And the side walls will be zinc as we had proposed before. So again, the thought is just clean, modern, understated type of design. And now we're going to the roof addition. This is a building outline diagram, and you can see there's numerous roof additions, some of them much larger than what we have or what we're proposing. But this just gives, again, some more context to what this block is like. There's even a larger multi-story apartment building in the middle here, and we have a very tall 30-story building here. Yeah, as well as other roof additions and extensions. This is an aerial photo showing the sort of context again of the block, and this is our building here. This is a photo of, so what we did here is we applied paint to create a mock-up of what we are now proposing to do. And we think that the roof addition will be about 2'9" lower than the current as-built addition. And not to mention quite a bit set back from before. The reason this change is happening, the next one. This one explains it. So what we're proposing is that basically the owner is now willing to remove the as-built condition of the roof addition, as well as these two floor joists. So we're gonna take all of these elements shown dash out and rebuild it correctly to the original levels that were proposed in the original proposal, original submission. So this is superimposing the original and the new proposed. So as you can see, these two floors, the this would technically be the second and third floor, will be much closer to what was originally approved in a previous application, and thus the entire roof addition will be now considerably lower than the as-built. So I guess long story short, we're really trying to just make sure that we correct all of this. And this is just a roof plan showing the pre-construction condition, which there was an elevator bulkhead, to what was approved, to what was built, and then to what we are now proposing. So what we're proposing, the footprint is actually going to be slightly, I think, smaller than what was originally approved. And we're also using smaller air conditioning units, which would even be less visible. In fact, these will not be visible anywhere from public thoroughfare. So what would be visible from public thoroughfare is basically in this direction, east of the building, where there are vantage points along 62nd Street and 3rd Avenue where visibility does exist. And this is, go back, this is view A, so we're standing here. And as you can see, this is what was originally presented. This is the as-built roof addition. And yeah, this is the painted mock-up. And so this is a new rendering based on the painted mock-up, and it's pretty much it's quite considerably reduced from the as-built. The other condition that has changed since our original presentation was that another high-rise building has been built. I think this is probably along First Avenue. So this further obstructs the visibility of our addition. So this is view B. which is now we're standing up on 3rd Avenue, looking towards the building. And here, this is the as-built. Zoom in a little bit. And then on this side would be a sort of rendered rendering of the proposed. Okay. And lastly, this is view C. So we are now standing 3rd Avenue at this corner on 62nd, viewing directly to the side. So that is this view. And zoom in a little bit. So this is the as-built. And this will be the sort of proposed. So again, the reduction in visibility, and this was taken in the winter. Probably in the other seasons, the trees will have leaves, and they'll be even further obscured from view. And basically, that's our proposal.
So we will go to the public. Kevin, let's see if anyone has a raised hand.
If anyone has a comment, please raise your virtual hand right now. First is Zainab.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Co-chairs Halpin and Cohn and the members of the committee, I'm Zainab Turan, speaking on behalf of the Friends of the Upper East Side Historic District. Friends Preservation Committee is relieved to see that the applicant at 210 East 62nd Street has submitted a completely new application for a certificate of appropriateness from the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and that it will be subject to the full public review process. Given the many years of non-compliance with LPC and DOB permits by the applicants, starting in 2016, when the first application was reviewed by the community board and a stop work order issued for massively overbuilt rooftop and rear yard extensions in violation of LPC approvals, we are heartened that the community and the neighbors in Treadwell Farm will once again have a chance to weigh in. We hope that this new application will represent a fresh start and be treated as an entirely new application, and that the applicants will be required to remove the existing non-compliant work at the site before they can proceed. Friends Preservation Committee will be reviewing the details of the application, but as the initial comment, we hope that the applicants will pay close attention to the scale and character of the historic district as they refine their proposal. The drawings submitted with the application do not adequately show how the proposed building will fit into the surrounding historic district. It is difficult to discern the colors and textures and material details and how far the rear yard extension extends to the property line. We would like to see more of the renderings that the applicant just showed tonight of the back facade. We also question the use of PVDF coated aluminum transoms on the rear facade. We ask the applicants to ensure that the rooftop and rear yard additions maintain an appropriate and contextual scale, and that the proposal prioritizes the preservation of this building and its character. Thank you.
Vanita, and then James, and then Julianne.
If I may, I don't know, it might make more sense for Julianne to precede me.
That's fine. Juliana.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As president of Treadwell Farm Historic District, I'm speaking on behalf of the executive committee and our neighbors regarding this new application for a C of A for 210 East 62nd Street. As you all know, a long-standing hazard and a blight on our entire district. Today, you've received more than 41 signatures and at least 24 letters in oppositions to 210's plans before tonight's call. And I will mention that Julie Menon, we've reached out to, and she opposes this plan. We want to thank CB8 for all the time you spent reviewing the materials and our neighbors' testimony and letters on this project. Since March 14, 2016, nearly a decade, Trendwell Farm and CB8 have had numerous discussions regarding 210 East 62nd and the havoc it has wrought on our community. In my 28 years that I have lived in Treadwell Farm Historic District, no property owner has ever acted with greater disregard for our historic district and its residents than that of 210. I know that many on CB8 and within our community share similar feelings of pure outrage. Today, I'm going to talk about four categories that I'm going to briefly highlight that are all very important to everyone on this call: historic preservation, non-contextual, safety, and green space. On December 6th, 2022, the COFA expired. And let me be clear that it is purely the property owner of 210 that bears the sole responsibility for this expiring. And I don't really blame it, per the architect, on COVID. There are a lot of things that led to this. Tonight, CB8 is reviewing a new application, and anything that LPC may have previously approved is null and void. Now is our collective opportunity to reset preservation and context as a main priority and to reject outright this far-reaching project and not permit the proposed green space devouring rear yard addition as well as rooftop addition. Treadwell Farm is not opposed to rear yard or rooftop additions, but these need to be contextual and appropriate. Since 2017, there have been 4 other single-family homes right here on 62nd Street with extensive renovations, namely 212 East 62nd, 222 East 62nd, 228 East 62nd, and most recently, 226 East 62nd. All of these homes and their owners followed LPC rules. Projects were completed in a timely manner, and homeowners moved into lovely, well-preserved homes that fit in form, detail, structure, and context with the historic neighborhood. You're going to hear more from some of those homeowners later because they're on this call that I see. The second point I want to reach out is on historic preservation. CB8 committee knows that 210 proposed rear yard addition would be more massive than any rear yard addition since Treadwell Farm Historic Landmark designation in 1967. In fact, there are 3 homes that have what one might term significant rooftop additions and rear extensions. All of those homes, 218 East 62nd, 220 East 62nd, and 242 East 62nd have extensions that were in existence before 1940s, well before the landmark designation in 1967. The slide that was shown by the architect shows those homes jutting out and that he is trying to emulate. The cumulative impact of 210's unprecedented rear yard addition and rooftop addition cannot be overstated and sets an unwanted precedent in this historic district since its designation. Not appropriate and non-contextual. Treadwell Farm is not opposed in principle to rear yard and rooftop additions. If 210 were to propose an appropriate and contextual rear yard addition and a rooftop addition, Treadwell Farm would be supportive, as we have been with others in the past. Rear yard additions should not overwhelm the surrounding buildings and massively encroach on shared green space. An appropriate rear yard addition for 210 is one that would be stepped back, matching in volume and height to the adjacent 210 East 62nd building. Safety. The property owner has racked up more than $700,000 in fines for our city for violations that jeopardize our personal safety as well as our historic buildings. and unapologetically adversely impacted our quality of life in ways too numerous to fathom. In the last few months, for example, Con Ed had to remove the gas line connection from the street to the house. A second floor window was blown out during a windstorm. I'm glad it blew in the building and not onto the sidewalk and pedestrians. Recently, the fire department needed to enter the building and broke down the flimsy front door, which after various calls has now been repaired and a more permanent door and lock have been installed. Each of these examples highlights serious hazards in which neighbors had to call city agencies to secure the residents and rectify the unsafe conditions. Green space. This is so important. After COVID-19, we all recognize the need for clean air and green space. Our green gardens and streetscapes lined with trees are the crown jewels of our neighborhood. The encroachment into the communal green space of the scale proposed by 210's rear yard addition would have systemic negative impact on Treadwell Farm well and long into the future. New York City in 2023 enacted Local Law 1065 to increase tree canopy coverage across the city from 22% to 30% to mitigate climate change and promote green solutions that improve air quality, reduce extreme heat, and provide further flood protection. We in Treadwell Farm want to keep our trees and gardens that promote healthy environments and foster tree canopy growth. 210's proposal would not only directly diminish Treadwell Farm's notable canopy, but also would lead to the future reduction within our historic district. I'm going to end by saying building is not necessarily better. There are some who will say, isn't something built at 210 better than an abandoned construction site? We would say, not if what is built is not appropriate, not contextual, and which leads to further incursions in the shared green space, a precedent setter with clear negative impact. We expect to require that any new plans within our historic district be not only appropriate in scale, but also very respectful of the contextual aesthetics that define our neighborhood's character. We urge the Landmarks Committee to act with authority and foresight entrusted to you to reject the application outright. We thank you for considering the long-term interests of our community in your decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you.
James Solomon, Vanita Solomon, and then James Powers.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
Great. Good evening. My wife and I live at 212 East 62nd Street, which is next door to 210. Our kids were 9 and 11 when this saga first came before this committee. Our daughter is now a college junior, and her brother is a rising high school senior. Remarkably, 9 of this committee's members have witnessed the applicant's grotesque conduct across 8 years. As a former board member on CB2, I join Julianne in conveying our gratitude to all of you for the committee's recent resolutions and letters of support. Thank you. I've submitted a detailed letter to this committee, which I hope you'll review when drafting a resolution from this evening's hearing. By now, our family's experience with this neighbor may be familiar to you. In 2016, we retained a preservation architect, David Atchison, to help us update our home consistent with the requirements of the Landmarks Law. We obtained unanimous CB8 and LPC approvals for a stepped back rear extension, 12 feet on the ground floor, stepped back to 6 feet on floors 2 and 3. It provided ample space to enhance a family room and add a bathroom while also preserving the shared green space. No rooftop addition was requested. We then completed our renovation. We played by the rules. In contrast, also in 2016, our neighbor at 210 was somehow granted approval for an oversized and non-contextual addition. Notwithstanding the beyond generous and controversial approval, this applicant then proceeded to disregard the Landmarks Law, the building code, and our historic community by illegally excavating the basement and underpinning without notice or permission both our home and his other neighbor, and overbuilding an enormous rooftop addition that far exceeded the approved design and crossed over both neighbors' property lines. Stop work orders were issued. We have collectively been left with a filthy, vermin-ridden open construction site for more than 7 years. Today, we're faced with a new application from the same owner. It's different in design, nothing innovative or flashy about it, but still includes the inappropriate height and bulk which overwhelm the Treadwell Farm donut and creates a severe and unwelcome intrusion in the precious green space enjoyed by all. It's extremely disappointing that the owner, who has all but destroyed this landmark district building by allowing it to stand open and vacant for all these years, would propose such an intrusive and unwelcome renovation. Clearly, this proposal is inappropriate and harmful to the historic district. It also falls flat with regard to rectifying the substantial damage that has been done over the past 7+ years. We urge you to vote no on this application with the goal of facilitating an appropriate design that will both meet LPC guidelines and ensure that the house is quickly brought up to a safe and habitable condition. Some finer points I wish to leave you with as briefly as possible. Nothing has been approved. This is a new application. The applicant's submission, LPC.14 on page 16 and on many other pages, refers to it as, quote, approved rear yard extension and approved roof addition. Yet, as Julianne pointed out, the applicant's original C of A expired in December 2022 solely because of the applicant's illegalities and intransigence. LPC rules clearly require that when a certificate of appropriateness expires, LPC requires a new application to be filed and reviewed as such. This is a new application, not an amendment of a current approval. And for reference, LPC's Rule 7-04B states, quote, an applicant may apply for a new permit for work which is the subject of an expired permit. The Commission will treat such application as a new application in all respects, and it will be subject to all applicable procedures, rules, and guidelines in effect at the time of such application. Close quote. The original C of A must not be used as a baseline to evaluate this new proposal. Doing so only serves the applicant. Also, built is not better, as Julianne noted. What's ultimately built is forever. Another point, mandate LPC oversight. Looking ahead, we respectfully ask that CB8 consider including in its resolution an explicit call for LPC and relevant city agencies to be hypervigilant in monitoring the actions of 210 East 62nd Street. And this includes compelling LPC to mandate that 210 engage outside independent experts in historic row houses at the applicant's expense. My letter to this committee details our specific concerns during the following 3 phases: pre-construction, demolition, construction. Suffice it to say, from 8 years lived experience, our community has well-founded angst about the applicant's trustworthiness and professional conduct, which pose a genuine threat to both property and person. Currently, the applicant shows no inclination to safeguard the adjacent property or properties. A few weeks ago, FDNY discovered 5 feet of stagnant water in 210 cellar, which is likely still there. Given the months-long response to a typical 311 call, timely oversight is needed. This is not solely a DOB matter. LPC also bears responsibility as 210 is putting the historic district at risk. Now imagine 210's actual demolition and construction. One cannot overstate the potential harm this applicant might do to Treadwell Farm's pre-1900 structures. Licensing agreement as a condition of the applicant's new C of A.
Mr. Solomon, a
Yes,
little
Mr.
courtesy. We have a whole meeting ahead of us. Make your points, finish making your points, please.
Yes, sir. As previously noted, the applicant illegally excavated and underpinned both of its neighbors' property. This constitutes a permanent trespass. Respectfully, we ask CB8's resolution also explicitly direct LPC to stipulate as a condition of a new C of A that this applicant first be required to obtain a license agreement from both neighbors for its permanent trespass. Let's restore rational thinking to Treadwell Farm. Perhaps we can use this moment. CB8 has already delivered its unanimous verdict on the inappropriateness of this applicant's proposed additions in its resolution in April of 2022. So what kind of modestly scaled contextual addition is appropriate for 210 East 62nd Street? My wife's next presentation will provide some visual context to what's being proposed, but let me conclude by suggesting, at a maximum, the applicant's rear addition should match what was unanimously approved next door at 212 by CB8 and LPC in 2016, as this has now established an existing context for rear additions in the donut and clearly evidences how a modest step-back addition can be built that preserves the architectural significance of the building without negatively impacting the green space or the other buildings in Treadwell Farm Historic District. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'll pass the mic to my wife.
Hi, I'm Vanita Solomon, and I also live at 212, and I'd like to share my screen if possible.
Yeah, you can do that.
Sorry. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to give a little context to the neighborhood, because we feel that missing from the architect's presentation is what's actually going to happen to the neighborhood if this were approved. The 210 sits in a row of houses in Treadwell Farm that were all built at the same time, 5 row houses in a row, 208 through 216 by the same builder. They all back up to similar row houses, back up to gardens and similar row houses on East 61st Street. The back-to-back gardens are unique to our neighborhood and to Treadwell Farms, and they provide open air and light, not just to the residents of Treadwell Farms, but to the large apartment buildings that are on the outskirts of the historic district. Many of them have windows that look down on these gardens. 208 through 216, pictured here, do not have roof additions, though some houses in the district do. And as you know, 210 is seeking both a rear addition and a roof addition. The bulk and volume of 210's proposal is pretty hard to understand without being in the actual space. In order to try to give you an idea of this massing, I've represented the additions in orange. So here's a picture of the building pre-construction, and this is a picture of what the massive rear addition and rooftop addition would look like. The building next to 210 is ours, which has a stepped back addition. 210's rear addition is 3 stories high, and it extends 17 feet deep into the garden. It also has solid rails on the sides, which add another 3.5 feet to either side. Combined with the wall of the apartment building at 200, which is not in the historic district, as was misrepresented by the architect. It's on the outskirts of the historic district. But combined with this high wall, and if this rear addition were approved, 208 will be entirely sandwiched in. The roof addition is the rear yard addition will give 942 additional square feet to the residents, and the rear yard addition will be 135% larger than the district's typical setback additions. The rooftop is actually larger by more than a foot than what is typically allowed by LPC and can be seen from the avenues. The rear and roof additions overwhelm the original building. I think all of us would agree in our row of townhouses that we're not opposed to additions. We just would prefer that they're modestly scaled, contextual, and step back similar to others within LPC, within Treadwell Farm. This is the view from the back of 208's garden. You can see the high wall of the apartment building on one side in gray and the massive rear addition on the other side. And the bottom view is from their, right outside their house's door. They'll have high walls on either side. This is just a mock-up of their garden before, if you're looking towards 210, and what it will look like afterwards. This wall is just representative of what the zinc paneling would possibly look like. I don't actually have an idea of what that would look like. But you can see it extends all the way to the sky. This slide just shows you a view from the back of 210's own garden, and then a view from 212's. 212 is where I live, my husband and I live, and you can see we have a stepped back addition. And then this is a view from our first floor terrace before the addition and after. To give you an idea, our first floor goes out 12 feet. And as you know, the applicant is proposing, I have 17 feet here. I think it's actually 16 feet, 11 inches, so almost 17 feet on every floor. And then we step back from those initial 12 feet. This is the view from the back of 214. And then I also just want to point out, because I don't think it's insignificant, the original, the floors on every floor, this applicant is proposing to raise the floors on every single floor. And it's important to note because it will have an effect on any additions that are approved at every floor. So if a first floor addition is approved, for example, it will be higher than the neighbors. And then you've heard both Julianne and my husband speak to these points. But I'll just quickly mention a couple that weren't spoken to. One happens to be when the site is ignored, it's left up to the neighbors for the past 7.5 years to do things like clear the snow so our other neighbors don't slip and fall, or clean up the excrement on the street, or take out trash that's left there.
Mrs. Solomon, I'm going to ask you to talk about context and appropriate.
I'm done. That's all. That's my last slide. Thank you so much.
And for everybody else, please, context and appropriateness, and let's try to be courteous as a time issue. I don't want to put a limit. Who's next? Kevin?
James, you are unmuted right now.
This James Powers, right? Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm going to offer just a very brief narrative of how I kind of think of this proposal as a community member, but also a newcomer to the community and someone who recently also did a renovation and someone who went through the LPC process and received approval. Look, my lens, and everyone should have their own lens, obviously. I'm trying to make mine as objective as possible. I care a lot about people being able to develop. I care a lot about safety. I care a lot about a sense of community. So those are my guiding principles. But I also knew when I moved here that I was moving to a landmark district. And I think in a really nice way, that's buying into something. It's buying into the charter, words like pleasant, attractive, charming residential oasis for over 100 years, atmosphere of greenery, an island. I mean, these are not my words. This is what I read, and it's a lovely idea. And I think the more we all buy into it, the more that we're all connected. So that's the experience I've had so far very much. I love this community. What I did, though, is I embarked on a renovation, and our renovation achieved a historical restoration of the home we bought to the standards it was before. And in doing that, we got landmark approval. We had many details to go through. There's always a lot of details in any project. And there were instances where specific things were proposed to us. And the answer was always immediately, yes, we will do any of those things. We'll do them immediately, because the spirit of our project was the same as the spirit of when we bought the home. We want to restore something while giving us a renovated home that we would enjoy living in. So when I think about, the guiding principles there, because the reality is there are a lot of subjective elements in how an approval works. How do you make it objective? And I'll make this very brief. I didn't want to put the community in a position where they felt like by approving a plan, they were setting a new boundary and a new precedent of what we could all expect in the future. And my specific issue here is just the greenery and the expansion and the idea that, are we chiseling away at the green space we all really enjoy, but also allowing us to take a further step, which could always allow another step. So I think 212 is a remarkably convenient and helpful objective example of what we can do and not feel like we're creating a new boundary. So I really appreciate the Solomon's presentation, very thoughtful. It puts in context the other presentation, which I'm trying to digest. I think Julianne's words are very helpful as well, but I just wanted to offer for people a vocal example of how I'm processing the information and why I would much prefer to see something like the 212 boundary be something we adhere to. So that's it.
Thank you. Duncan?
Hi, hi, everybody.
Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Halpern, I'll try and very much respect your request and keep this brief. And I'm going to pull this back a little macro. Jim and Vanita and James and Julianne said all the detail stuff beautifully. So I just want to say this. As I've lived here at 208 East 62nd Street with my wife and 5-year-old daughter for the past almost 3 years, I've come to feel differently about what it means to live in an historic building in an historic neighborhood. It does come with far greater responsibilities than living in a loft in Tribeca or a condominium on the west side, or even a fancy co-op on Madison Avenue. You may own the building in the legal sense of the word, but really what you've been given is the rare chance to have sort of stewardship over what is a truly special place in a truly special environment. I've made great friendships with many of the people in the neighborhood. I've seen firsthand the care and pride they have in their own homes and the Treadwell Farms district as a whole. So it's a fairly unique and increasingly rare thing to see that in Manhattan. My wife is in real estate, so I've seen how difficult it can be to buy or even rent your dream home. It doesn't matter who you are or how much money you may have. So my feeling is that if you're lucky enough to land in such a place, you must do everything you can to maintain a tidy rig, to use an Australian expression. And nobody's perfect, but beyond that, you really should do your best to be the best neighbor you can be. I understand how challenging it can be to maintain a home when you are not physically present. I had a place in Garrison, New York for over a decade. I don't think I ever stuck the landing on that, so I chose to sell it. So here we are in this amazing place, and my heartfelt request is that however this process pans out, the building that is 210 62nd Street is lovingly cared for and made to be a beautiful and appropriate addition to the neighborhood for my sake, for my family's sake, and most of all for the sake of the legacy of the Treadwell Farms. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Kevin?
I don't see anyone else, no.
Thank you all. We'll go to the committee. And I guess let's go alphabetically.
Elizabeth?
I think that this is faint praise, but this is an improvement. The applications that we suffered from before here. I have a question. What is the facing of the facade? It's not brownstone, or what is it?
You're talking about the street facade?
Yes.
It's going to be a limestone type of cement stucco finish, but it'll be emulating limestone.
Yeah.
So it'll be similar to the neighbors.
Yeah. I would like, I think this was originally brownstone, in which case I would like it to go back there. I think using your wooden windows is a good idea. I think that the size and the design of the rear yard extension are not appropriate. I know that there are people who have had glossy, modern additions or rear facades. I don't think that they're appropriate, even though the public does not see them. And am I right in assuming that across the street, on the sidewalk, on the public way, one cannot see the rooftop addition?
If you're standing across the street on 62nd Street, you cannot see the roof addition at all.
Yeah.
You can only see it as you walk towards 3rd Avenue, where there's a long vista point.
Well, I prefer that you didn't have one. I think that the character of this very charming historic district deserves a great deal of respect here. And so I think I'm not ready to approve this yet, but I want to congratulate the architect for improving on the horrors that they did before.
Thank you.
Gail?
I understand that your windows are going to be lowered in order to accommodate French doors. How much lower will those windows be?
We approximate 9 inches. Somewhere around that, somewhere around there. So it won't be a significant drop. The old windows were very close to the floor anyway, so.
And in the rear, with the modern design, there appears to be a tremendous amount of glass. And given the neighbors around the donut and all, how will that be addressed? Because light coming through glass can be very disruptive.
Are you saying like how will sunlight be controlled, or privacy, or what?
No, if from the inside of a home that is basically the back is glass, at least as you showed the design.
Yeah.
That light filters out into the rear yard. And is there any any type of application you plan to put on the glass to be able to cut down the light filtration, which I do believe might impact on neighbors' quality of life, particularly in this very charming area where people are so concentrated on being able to be good neighbors?
Well, I mean, obviously all kinds of window treatments can be added to control light emanating out. And also, we're not opposed to having landscaping, trees and whatnot in the backyard. I mean, I think trees are a nice thing, and you know, whatever trees that are there now that can be preserved, we would like to preserve them.
What are the total dimensions of the rear yard?
Let's see. Let me get back to the drawing for a second. The rear yard, it would be it's a 100-foot lot, so it would be 35 feet.
So you would intrude 17 feet into the 35, or?
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, there's a 30-foot rear yard setback line, so I would guess then that, yeah, that would be a 30-foot rear yard.
Are you guessing or are you designing?
No, it would be exactly 30 feet.
Okay, so that's protruding quite a bit into the rear yard. Regarding the rooftop addition, the materials, will they be
It'll
the
be
same as the facade?
Yeah, it would be primarily zinc as well, with a aluminum frame windows and doors.
And what
Front
will
and
the
back.
windows be like in the addition? Will they be the same as elsewhere on the front facade?
No, so we treated the roof addition as, you know, something separate from the historic conditions of the original building massing. So, I mean, I guess just design, like from a philosophical point of view, design-wise, we always thought if we try to just emulate the historic look of an addition, which is obviously not historically original, it tends to, I don't know, make things look weird. Like it doesn't define what is the new edition versus what is truly historic. And I've always felt that if you try to make fake historic, it kind of takes away from the real historic. And that's why we chose to go with a more modern vocabulary on both the roof edition and the rear yard edition. That's just sort of our philosophy behind the design.
No, I understand your philosophy. So then are the windows going to basically be the same on the roof addition as the back facade?
Yeah, so there will be
glass
yes, it will be aluminum glazing. Yeah, aluminum with glazing.
Okay,
Yes.
those are my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Michelle?
Thank you. Yeah, what are the dimensions of the rooftop addition?
In plan?
What you propose to build?
Yeah, let me put this back on this.
Give us the plan and give us the height.
So this is a plan view. So
If you can tell us, because it's very hard for me to read it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the dimensions. Yeah. If you can see this.
So 18.9.
Yeah. So this roof slopes down this way, slopes down this way. So
The highest
in plan,
point is 18.9.
the highest point is this line here. Let me go to another drawing and you can see what I'm talking about. So from this peak to the back is 18.9. And from this peak to the front is 18.9. 9.6.
And the width?
And the width is, it's the full width of the lot in the back, which is 18 foot 9 inches this way. And it's basically just a stair bulkhead on this side, so 8 foot 2 width. And keep in mind, we also want to retain a 3 foot setback from the actual rear facade where the cornice is to where the roof, the new roof
3
addition
feet.
is.
I see,
Yes.
correct. Okay, and the rear addition, what are the total dimensions?
So it's 1611 by the width of the lot, 18 foot 9. So that's the blue area here.
By 18.7?
18 foot 9 width.
Oh, okay, I couldn't see. All right, 18.9. So, and you're encroaching on the rear yard only 5 feet. The rear yard should be 35, and you're saying you're going to have 30? Did I misunderstand that?
No. So the rear yard after the roof, after the rear yard extension is 30 feet. So we have a
So you'll
30
have a
foot.
30-foot rear yard.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Now, I just want to go to you noted on one of your slides about how you are changing the floor heights.
Correct.
And so but you noted that you're changing the window heights on only one of the floors to make French doors, but changing the height of the floors, does that presume that you're that you're changing the height of the windows on those floors in which you're changing the ceiling height?
Yeah, we go to that slide.
And you're doing it specifically to line up with the windows in the adjoining homes?
Yes. So yes, correct. The header of these windows, which will now be French doors, will align with the neighbor to our east. The west neighbor, it's not historic. So we're not using them as a guide. We're really using the east neighbor as a guide, which is 208.
But do the red dashes represent a change in ceiling height? Are you moving? And are you cutting to make those windows to become 7 feet? What are they now? In other words, what are you changing them from and to?
Okay, let me get to the other diagram. Show you. Okay, so this.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, this is the one. So the black dash lines are what we propose to remove. They were not built correctly. And then the red dash lines is basically where the pre-construction floor was. So what we're gonna do is
when you say,
these
excuse
two.
me, let me just understand. When you say pre-construction floor, you mean the original floor, your construction.
Correct. Pre our construction.
That's the
as we
original
found
floor.
it.
Okay.
Yes. So what we want to do is try to get it back, closer to what the original floors were, because obviously that would lower the entire roof addition. It basically we're just going to have lower ceiling heights on these 2 floors. That's the way it's going to be. And then
but
the whole new.
Is that move returning it to how it was originally, or is this a new proposal?
So let me go back to the other slide. So this is, again, the red lines are pre-construction.
I don't understand that term. Pre our construction? your
Correct.
coming construction.
It's the original building before anyone did anything.
Okay, so that's the
Yeah.
original, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, and then these the dark gray shaded floors are now what we're proposing. So on the both the third and fourth floor, we're trying to get it back to pretty much, you know, matching the original building floor heights.
I'm not
Does that make sense?
understanding you, sir. I'm very sorry. I don't
No, it's
understand.
okay.
Let me just ask the question this way.
Yeah.
Are you moving the floors so that they represent what was originally there? Or are you changing the floor heights to represent your new proposed plan?
Okay. Our goal is for the third floor, this floor, and the fourth floor, we want to bring it back to basically match the original building floor levels, you know, as close as we can. Obviously, the fourth floor, we're going to have to do a level floor because the original roof would slope. But our goal is really to go back to what the original building was in terms of floor levels, and then from there work out our roof addition, which will now be significantly lower than what was as built. As
And
it
the
is.
same philosophy on the third floor?
Yes. So that's why you know, we're able to reutilize these openings and try to match our neighbor to the east.
Okay, so because of that, your window openings can remain. You don't have to adjust them to match the adjacent property. They can remain because you're doing the adjustment on the east, on the inside. Am I understanding?
Correct. We may have to lower the opening a little bit to be more accommodating to the roof terrace. But that as I mentioned before, it may be a 9-inch drop, so it's not a significant drop. But the header and the brick cornice line, which is probably going to be the most visible part of this portion of the rear facade, will basically be back to the original, matching our neighbor to the east.
Okay. Let me just say this. I have a big problem with the design of the rear facade. And to me, it will create what I call a light box. And all of the surrounding neighbors will be subject to what the resident in your property does to shade those windows. So it's a completely glass facade, which I for one can't support. But I have a couple of other questions. This house was allowed to go into the kind of disrepair that you're looking at here, which left it completely open to the weather. And you explained to us that you have the same owner. This is the same owner, and that on this property there were faults to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It may not be relevant to the appropriateness of the actual design at the moment, but I think it is relevant as to how this could go forward if we should approve it or if we don't. But if we did, have those fines been all paid off? And has that resident, that current owner, because we know in the past that he changed the design after and in spite of disapprovals or approvals. In other words, he was not a compliant developer. So what assurances do we have? And I want to say that if we have a resolution, I would certainly support the proposals that the public made to ensure inspection, which I think Landmarks, I believe, is required to do when adjoining properties or landmark properties, but we can get into that later. But what assurances do we have that if we approve this, that would actually go forward, for those of you, I mean, many of us on this call remember this original application. There are some new people here, so, but I just want to represent that what the public had said was true. This is going on for 10 years now, and we haven't had cooperation. So now with these new plans, what assures us about compliance?
Michelle, I don't think the architect can comment on the fines. And all he can do is follow the same rules that every other architect has to follow. And he will be doing some of his own inspections. There are special inspections required. There are inspections by the building department, by landmarks, and by third-party inspectors. If all of that is done properly, I'm not sure that we need more than that. However, in terms of what's happened in the past, that certainly is some concern for all of us. But right now, all we can comment on is context and appropriateness. We can't put into our resolution some of the things that have come up. They'll have to come up. They'll have to come up in the public sector in other ways, but they cannot come up through our review. Our review is going to be context and appropriateness. We can move a little bit in the direction, as we have in the past, to take into account other considerations, but basically we are context and appropriateness.
Okay.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
If the architect wants to volunteer, that he can guarantee us.
I do want to make just a quick comment about a concern you had about the light transmission. I just I want to point out that our neighbor to the west, I mean, yeah, of course, stylistically it's different, but it's essentially this was approved. It's three levels of basically, mostly glazed surfaces, and of course they use window treatment, which is something we would probably want to do as well. But this was approved with all of this glazing, and then the top floor, this proposal probably incorporates more glazing than what we're going to propose for the top floor. We'll be more in line with these kind of openings. So even with our neighbor to the west, there's already precedence of considerable glazing.
So
can you go back to that slide showing your proposed rear?
Mm-hmm. So this is our current proposal.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, stylistically, yes, it's different. It's a different vocabulary, but we're not proposing that much more glazing than even our neighbor.
Okay. All right. So let me just sum up, because we have many people making comments. So I'll just say this. I'm not comfortable with the glazing in the rear. I have a different philosophy about additions, so I'm not comfortable with the drastic difference between the rest of the facade and the materials that are being used. And I have one last comment about the front, which maybe I didn't see it, but I saw a door. I saw in the original, I saw 2 doors and a window. But then with the proposed, I see 2 windows and a door. Am I misreading that? Yeah, like look at you're calling it pre-construction. I'm calling it the original. Okay, that's to me, that's 2 doors and a window. And now if you go over to the proposed street facade, which is way to the right to the viewer, we see a door and 2 windows.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, unfortunately, the sign is sort of blocking the historic condition, but it's I would venture to say most of the townhouses on this block are one door and two windows, and it's just unusual that there's two doors here. I'm not sure why.
Elsewhere in your proposal, do you have a proposal for what the materials will be for the doors? You said you're restoring the windows to wood, is that correct?
Yes, so the doors will also be painted wood, be a hardwood. You know, with the front, we really want to try to accurately do a historic restoration because, you know, obviously this is the side that everyone's gonna see,
Right.
and we're really gonna emulate both of our neighbors to try to match all of the details and surrounds for.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Alita?
Thank you. Okay, so what I'd like to start out by saying is that I was chair of the board when, at some point when this project came up as presenting all of the problems of the overbuilt roof, the taking over space on the both neighbors' roofs, the underpinning under the building, and that was all wrong, and it was drastically and dramatically wrong. So I'll just say this. A certificate of approval for changes and additions is a privilege, not a right. And for me, that privilege is not earned, not only because of the scale and the scope of what's proposed, but because this building deteriorated to such an extent that a building in a beautiful historic district has 3 boarded up windows, standing water. I've heard complaints for years about open windows and vermin and pigeons nesting and infesting the space that is basically spitting in the face of not only your neighbors, but of the community, the entire Treadwell Farms district, the apartment buildings and other buildings to the east and to the west, to this community board. And I'll just say to the Landmarks Preservation Commission and the citizens of the city of New York, this is just wrong. It's inappropriate materials. The rooftop addition is too big, and to say that it is visible. Every architect that comes before us takes extremely great pains in most, well, I said every, but let's just say most cases, to show how it is not visible. You're saying that it is visible, but not as big as what was built without approvals, because really the roof, if I can remind everybody, was built way beyond what the Landmarks Preservation Commission has approved to. So to say that it's slightly smaller than something that shouldn't be there to begin with is just wrong. The rear yard extension is way too big, way too tall, and way too inappropriate for, again, the community and your neighbors and the people facing you and the other people sharing the street. So that's all I'm going to say, is that there is nothing about, and the presentation was rather skimpy on detail to say that you're going, I'm a lawyer, I listen to words, to say that you're going to try to match the neighbors, you're going to, it's only a little bit more glazing, it's almost this, it's slightly more for that. They're nothing that you can hang a hat on. They have nothing to do with what is actually going to be there, because you could always say, well, we tried, but we just couldn't do it, or it was too expensive or something else. This is so much lacking, and therefore so, I believe, disrespectful of this committee and the neighbors who came to talk about this project, that there is no way in the world that I could vote yes on any single aspect of this proposal. But I thank you for giving us your time. You're spending quite a lot of time because there are quite a lot of comments. I'll just end there. Big no for me. Thank you.
Sarah?
Hi. So I'm a part of, there are a few of us on the community board meeting today who've been voting against the rear addition since 2016, and I'm among them. Philosophically, I believe that context and appropriateness extends to the rear yard. Not everyone on this committee shares that feeling, but it's something that I believe. And so I have less of a tolerance for departure in the rear yard than maybe some of my other fellow community board members. And over the years, Mr. Ney, I've seen your beautiful designs, and they are inventive and creative. But in a historic district, I just don't find them to be contextually appropriate. And the and so and even more so in a historic district like Treadwell Farms, where there is an expectation that when people move into Treadwell Farms, that there is a set of there's an expectation for how your neighbors will behave, as well as, and that people follow those rules because they hope and they expect that their neighbors will be doing the same. And while there is a 30-foot rear yard with the extension, something that we've encountered over and over again in this committee is that as of right doesn't mean that it meets context and appropriateness. And in this neighborhood where the donut is being chipped away, that I don't think that I could ever support an extension into the rear yard. And that's just always been my position. And so I feel like you're receiving a lot of comments that you may be limited in your capacity to address, but appreciate your work on this project. But unfortunately, I would be a definite no on the rear yard. I hope that if we have a resolution that that we may be able to separate out at least the rear yard and the rooftop addition. Thank you.
John McClellan.
I think the only issue I have with this is just the massive size of the rear addition. Otherwise, I don't think I have any particular criticisms.
Thank you, John. Jane Partial.
I will oppose this application. I will support the local community. Thank you.
Abraham Salcedo.
Thanks, Kevin. I mean, I think much has already been said. I think the rear and the roof are inappropriate, and I won't not be able to support them. So thank you.
Marco.
Thank you. First of all, I had to congratulate the designer. The designer make a lot of efforts, but not in the way that I wish to have it. And also for the neighbors, I think I had to congratulate them that finally there are a group of concerned citizens to preserve a historical district. This district, I think, is similar to the Carnegie Hill district, that they are fighting ferociously to maintain and preserve the donut. Now, the question right here is basically your rear additions, and you mentioned that you have either two choices. Either you become a preservationist or an innovator. And in your innovation, basically, it looks like, I know that you try to differentiate between what is the historical and context, and you want to definitely show up a big difference with a modern style. And I think being personal myself as a preservationist, I prefer there is some ways to demonstrate that there is actually a new changes that has been made in the rear part. With respect to the bulk, I think is very crucial, that part. Clearly, you try to use the zoning resolution, which is a good way to make your point. However, when you have a donut that actually you divide the community or the donut, creating a small section that actually you isolate one neighbor and the other from the rest. And I think that sensibility is lost in your proposal. And I think for that reasons, I think I'm going to oppose this application. Thank you.
Judy Schneider.
Yes, I just want to say, excuse me, I feel the rear yard additions are completely overwhelming and not appropriate. And I just want to, you'll forgive me, David, make a comment to the architect that he please speak to his client about being a considerate neighbor and keeping the front of his property neat and clean, because there have been so many problems over the years with this piece of property. Thank you.
We'll call that context.
Anthony and David.
Okay. I'll go first. I could comment on the inappropriateness of your materials, the zinc, the stucco, aluminum windows on the rear, all of the glass. Or I could comment, as others have, on the massing, the size of the roof addition and the size of the rear yard addition. But I think there are two things that are really important here that have to do with only one of which has to do with appropriateness. And the first is that your client has acted in bad faith in the past, and we have no reason to believe, no evidence that your client will act in good faith now. That's one thing. And the second thing is the vocabulary of what you want to do in the rear addition. This building, this type of building, and in fact, your neighbor's building, the Solomon's house, which I think is actually to your east rather than your west, but the vocabulary of these houses is made up of masonry walls with openings for windows to admit light or let people come in and out. You're proposing not a stylistic change, but a complete reversal from the formal essence of the building type. So what the Solomons did next door, and I'm just using it as an example as you did, what the Solomons did next door was they took the essential vocabulary of the row house, that masonry wall with openings, and made openings in a masonry wall. You're throwing all of that away and introducing not just new materials, but new materials expressed in a way that is antithetical to the building type. I'm done.
Thank you, Anthony. I don't have a lot to add, but I do have a question. The second floor, are you also changing, or has it already been changed, the level of the floor? Did you get that section up?
The second floor.
Well, I may be misnumbering it, but if you could bring up your section.
So wait, let me put on my share screen again.
Essentially, it's the floor where the window hits the top of the floor. And
are we talking about this floor? This floor?
I'm talking about that floor where the window is hitting the top of the floor.
So this one,
it seems to be in reverse.
Yeah, so this floor, it was so the red line is the original building, and
you're raising the floor.
Yes, this one is a bit higher, but it was it was close. Yeah, it was close enough that we could use this one.
The drawing speaks for itself. It means when you're standing at the window, that your feet are at the bottom of the window, and there's no, which is very different from what was originally intended. It may be a small detail, but it's definitely different. The way it would look from the outside in if people were in that space. So, I just want to make clear that you're moving floors in two directions. And personally, I think the floors belong where they originally were. Small points, but I think they're critical to what you're doing. I would say that Anthony summed it up very well. We do have a lot of precedents, which you could probably find, and as Elizabeth pointed out, where we've had contemporary rear yards. But again, it's a question of appropriateness. And there are some locations where we have felt that that was acceptable, but I don't think that's acceptable at Treadwell Farms. And I think Anthony has made the point very well. Also, you're designing to the code with the 30-foot rear yard, but that is not the way to design. The way to design is with respect to proportions. And I think you are way, way off in terms of the proportions of what you've done. So I have to be what I think is in agreement with a unanimous feeling that we can't approve what you are proposing. And I think, and well, last but not least, and I think this was touched on already by Michelle, it's originally a brownstone and you're changing it to a limestone color. Is there some reason for that?
I think we were just trying to emulate our neighbors, which are also of a lighter color. But on that subject, if the committee feels that they like,
can you show us the elevations?
Yeah,
front elevations.
Sure. But on that point, if the committee feels that the brownstone is more appropriate, I think the owner might be okay with that change. Let's see if I can get the, yeah. So this is the original. But you can see even with the original. Yeah, I mean, everything, all the detailing was lost. So these were all aluminum windows.
No.
Whereas our neighbors, they had a light color facade. So we went with the limestone to sort of kind of emulate our neighbors.
Okay.
However, if you feel brownstone is more appropriate.
We're not designing it for you. We just want to understand what you did and why you did it.
Yeah. Well, we just wanted to be blended more with our neighbors. That was
okay. Can I get a resolution? I would prefer not to break it up. I don't see any reason to approve any part of this. So I will write the proposal appropriately or the resolution appropriately, but I would prefer to do it as one resolution, not three parts.
I agree. I would I'd like to move to disapprove the application as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second, Martha? Thank you. Michelle? Thank you.
Well, yes, no, I raised my hand to make exactly that resolution, so.
Very
We can
good.
both second it.
Kevin, can we call the roll, please?
Okay, let me just unmute everyone.
This is a disapproval, so a yes is a disapproval.
Okay, Elizabeth Ashby,
Yes,
Gail Barron,
Yes.
Michelle Birnbaum,
Yes,
Alita Camp,
Yes.
Sarah Chu,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
John. John, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Abraham,
Yes.
Marco,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
And thank you, Anthony. You're
Thank you, David. The next item on the agenda is 23 and 25 East 64th Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. It is two buildings. This is a fascinating project, actually. A Neo-Grecian building and a Renaissance Revival style building designed by Peckering and Walker and John G. Prague, respectively, and built in 1907, 1908, and 1879, 1880. And you can tell when you look at them which is which, with alterations in 1926 and 1980 and 1919 and 1980, respectively. Application is for restorative work to address the non-matching as-built facade elements, installation of approved doors, adjustment of the exhaust vent height, and the removal of lettering on the bottom part of the garage door. Is the applicant someone here to speak to it? Yes, I think he is.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me when I'm my name is Luis Vieira Lisboa. we are the architects for this project. We had a permit from Landmarks back in 2014 to restore the three buildings, actually, 23, 25, and 740 Madison Avenue. We restored 23 and 25 from work that was done back in the 1980s, where they created two garages on both buildings, and they put styrofoam stucco on the whole facade. We went and removed everything. We found in 23, we found the brick, original brick and limestone, and we restored it to its original form. As restoring in the lower level, we restored the brick, but we missed an area for a band because it wasn't there anymore. A band of limestone below the big window. We kept all the windows as is. We kept the garage and the side door. The side door at that time was approved for a glass door. The tenant went to Landmarks and asked to be able to put a 6-panel door, which took such a long time that the permit expired. So I'm adding it to this. The 25 building was a brownstone. We restored the whole brownstone and also added a storefront, which originally was a storefront. Before it was a garage when they converted and did the work in the 1980s. And because of the size of the glass, the storefront glass, the door next to it was very small. And Landmarks asked us if we could put something that aligns with the storefront window. Above, there is a sort of a square bay window that when we removed...
Anthony?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll share. Okay. Here it is. I'm just going to, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me go to it. So here we restored, this is 25. We restored this whole area here into a brownstone because let me go back first to sort of give you the look of what I was talking about. Sorry, just bear me a second. This is what we found, the work that was done in 1980. You see the whole stucco that was done on it with styrofoam behind. When we uncover the details, we uncover in 25 here, we uncover the actual brownstone detail moldings, and we uncover this brick detail here, as you can see here. So we wanted to restore to the original. This is what we restored from it. So what occurred was, I'm going to go back to the as-built. This is what pre-permit. This is what it was. It was all facades. We restored the whole brick on this facade. We restored the whole brownstone on this facade. and added a stone here. Due to the size of the door, this door shows as 9 feet. The door is actually 7-foot doors. It didn't align, and you'll see it. This year, we missed this band here. So, and then on top of that, there's an exhaust here that they want to hide. The bay window here, if you see it, when we uncover this bay window, the square bay window is actually built out of stone, brown stone, which we thought, so to keep it without tearing it down and building a fake bay window, we had to reinforce beams here underneath without, and we couldn't take it apart, it would just fall, it was brittle. So this was the outcome of it from what we originally had approved, you see here, to this. Landmarks felt that we needed more detailed in it when we went back to Landmarks to have a sign off. So and they provided us actual photographs, tax photos of what the actual details were here. So we analyzed their photos and we decided to restore it to its original based on the tax photos. And this is what we found from the original. You can see the side, the side columns here, the decorative portico, which we found some of original details that was totally destroyed. And we decided to add here a more corbel decorative columns, so it ties in with the original facade. In the meantime, for this year, we also would like to eliminate the duck, put it underneath the curb, and add sort of a stone, I wouldn't call it transom, but a header, so that it aligns with the window. So this is the restoration for 25. For 23, we are proposing to remove the signs, of course, as Landmarks requested. And we decided, after looking at the tax photos, we found a picture of a stone that matches the upper floor right here. So we would like to add that to it. And that's pretty much, and on top of that, we would like also the doors that had been approved, we would like to add 6-panel historical doors. And we provided details of it right here for the hardware, which is gold, and all the detail. It's not, it's an actual solid wood door that we will be installing it. And these are samples for Landmarks to approve color-wise. And I want to show you, these are the photographs of the tax photos that were provided by Landmarks. And you can see over here, the decorative detail, and here the particle detail, the columns, and how it ties into the header below. We also see here the band of stone right here. And we also analyze these pictures for further details. And then we have pictures of what we uncovered when we removed the stucco, which is right here. We want to restore this. You see how was all destroyed with water. There was lots of water damage and so forth. This is what we didn't find any details until we saw the photographs. So we want to restore this to the drawing that we presented. And here's what I'm presenting, to add a header that aligns with the storefront. And this is also the detail. Sorry. This is the details that you can see from the side, that it's all destroyed, and we just want to restore to its original. And that's pretty much the scope of work that we are going to present to Landmarks.
Okay, so let me just sort of try and summarize here. You're restoring the limestone panel below the second floor window.
Correct.
You are, excuse me, removing some lettering off the garage door. Always a good idea. And you are then on And that's more or less all you're
No,
doing.
no, we are adding we are changing, right now, they have a metal door, the tenant.
Oh, okay, and you're changing it to a
and,
wood 6-panel door. And then
to a
on,
wood 6-panel door.
right, and then on 25, you are essentially restoring the brownstone from the second floor up and providing a new cleaned up stone facade, or cleaning up the, sorry, you are adding a panel, a transom panel above the door, the entry door, so as to align it with the storefront window. And otherwise, you are restoring the brownstone detail, and you're also hiding that exhaust.
You got it.
Okay.
We found from the photographs, which because when they did the stucco, an example is if you see in the original, the tax photos, if you look through it, there's a band here.
Mhm.
There is no, when we removed the stucco, there was nothing. It was totally to the bare bones, just the stucco.
Yes,
We found
and you
color.
are in fact going to use actual brownstone in the restoration?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to match exactly what it is and what's been approved, brownstone.
Okay.
And in coordination with landmarks and approval, with submittals to landmarks for their approval for all the details.
Okay. Very good. Kevin, do we have any members of the public?
No, I don't see anyone.
I don't see any either. So I guess we should go to the committee and maybe in reverse alphabetical order.
Marco?
Thank you. I think you already summarized everything. And however, I would like to ask a question. When this garage was built or was installed on 23rd?
I know both garages, and I'll show you a picture. This is the work that was done in the 80. So that was where the two, so that's one garage, that's the other garage for both buildings. That's when that I know that it was installed.
So it was already created before the building was landmark.
Yeah, we kept one of the garages because it goes down to the sub-cellar with the elevator. And the other one we eliminated, we returned it to a storefront.
Okay. Well,
and that's the one closest to 740.
Well, I think at the time when you remove the styrofoam, you find a very nice surprise, and you try to emulate, or at least to bring up as much as possible. I think it's a good idea. You try to organize your transom with alignment with the big window. And finally, I think what you're doing and removing the aggressive lettering on the wall, on the entrance for the car. I think you're removing that, and I think it's pretty much. I think I agree with you. Thank you.
Abraham?
I don't have any questions. I think I can support this. I think the improvements are a welcome addition.
Shane?
I will support the application. Thank you.
John?
We support it as well.
Sarah?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Alita?
I support the application. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yeah, what's the material of the garage door?
It's just a metal door, originally what it's there. It's painted black. And from the original application, that was what the landmarks asked us to do.
So there was no discussion of a wood door with panels that
No,
would complement the front?
It's actually an elevated door, so it lifts up and down.
Oh, okay.
So it's like code compliant to.
It splits.
Yes, you got it. That's why you see the line in the middle.
I didn't quite pick that up.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
pointing
okay.
so you see
All
it. So
right,
we
and the size of the window was never in question in this application? That's
We
a
kept-
given and it was approved, never
Yeah,
discussed?
we kept all the window sizes throughout the facade. The only question is when you go to the original store, there was a beam there and we kept it for the original window. So if you go to, I'm gonna show you the application I'm gonna show you the original storefront. Hold on, for the tax lot. Hold on. Yeah, if you zoom in here. It goes actually, you see, this is the
It's
window
not up.
goes on. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not up.
So, Chester. You see here
Yeah.
the stores. This is actually awning. The window goes up here, and this window and the original next door also went all the way up there.
I see.
And
And the
that's-
entrance, I see one entrance to the building. Is that the entrance to the storefront or does it split inside?
It's when they did the work in the 80s, they flushed it out. They built it out. Do you see it here? They flushed the entrance, so we kept
No,
the
no, I
same.
mean on the building that has the storefront.
This is this built. You see the circle here? I don't know if you're seeing it.
Yeah.
This is the storefront. See
Oh,
the garage?
okay, so the window is not there yet.
No. No, in the 80s, they removed the window and they put a garage. So the over here, there's a beam here. That the original window was this size. So they built this in front of it to this.
But at this moment in time, do we have one building with a window and one building with a garage?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So what I'm asking is the window is a window to a storefront. But
Yes,
I
it
see,
is.
correct,
It's
but
so
I see one door entrance. So
Yeah, you
I'm
see-
wondering,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
there are two buildings. So I'm looking at the
Sure.
building with the white door
Mm-hmm.
and a window to its right.
Right.
So I'm wondering, when you walk into that building, do you go to the right to enter the store? And then is there a staircase up to the rest of the
No.
building?
So let me sort of explain. All these three buildings is one store.
Oh,
So let me
okay.
show you the floor plan. So that's what we restored originally. But here, this is your floor plan. So this is the window. This is the entrance to one, and this is the other entrance, and this is the car lift.
Right.
So it goes here. So that's the second means of egress. This is another window. So we kept this window because the ideally was to make sure when we did all three buildings, is to make sure that all three buildings do not look the same. So to bring it's the original brownstone in the one in the middle and the brick facade in the second building. Let me go back here so you see it. See how they don't look the same? Oops. There's your buildings.
And then the
So-
third, so that whole store is Bottega Veneta?
Yes, all the floors.
I see, okay. All right. All right, I got it. And so that's why you have no signage anywhere else, because you have the Bottega Veneta sign on where the entrance to the store is. And that's why you have no signage and no lighting anywhere else?
Right, so
Okay.
Landmarks was very precise that we had to keep all three buildings separate, which we did. And also, when you look inside the store, if you walk, we created a wall between Madison Avenue and 25 to make sure that when you look in, it feels like one building, not just from outside, but also from inside.
Okay, thank you.
Gail?
Thank you. I can support the application.
Elizabeth?
I think it's fine. I think you've done a nice job.
David and Anthony?
I think what he's done is fine, but two facades that have nothing to do with one another, but he's done a good job trying to relate them at least to the base, and he's doing some restoration, and I think it's a good job.
Yeah, I think it's fine, and it's one of those problems that's actually very as interesting for the architect as it is for us. Do we have a resolution?
Yes,
Marco.
I would like to put a resolution saying that is approved as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Was there
Somebody has to second.
Gail and Michelle have seconded, and
Second.
Abraham and Alita. So let's go to a vote, and we can go backwards if you like.
All right, I'm gonna unmute everyone. Marco?
Yes.
This is a approval. Abraham?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
David?
Yeah.
Anthony?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Okay. The next application is 690 Park Avenue, Upper East Side Historic District. Joshua Brendan Fauner, architect. A neo-federal style building designed by Walker and Gillette and constructed in 1916. Application is to widen the existing door on 69th Street into the rear yard of the consulate to make it accessible. Modification of the existing window facing the rear yard to make it a door to provide handicapped access from the rear yard to the first floor. And the removal of existing razor wire, installation of new decorative iron spikes on top of the existing wall to the rear yard. So is the architect here? Okay.
Yes.
We're looking for your presentation.
Great. Let me share a screen. And you all can see my presentation now?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Josh Brandt from Brenner Architect. My client is the Consulate General of Italy, who occupies 690 Park Avenue. It is part of this block, the Pine-Davison block between 68th and 69th on the west side of Park Avenue, with buildings by McKinley and White and Delano and Aldrich. The corner building at the north end of the block, the southwest corner of 69th and Park, is Walker and Gillette, built as the Henry Davison House and occupied by the government of Italy since 1955. And so the consulate does a variety of things in New York City, and one of the things they do is they service Italian expatriates and others, I guess, who are getting visas and passports. And that's a large portion of their business, is the issuing of passports to Italian citizens. And I guess the visas get issued both to Italian citizens and non-Italian citizens. So they have the visa office. How do I get the page down? There we go. These are historic photographs and maps of the building. The visa office is in the cellar, and the passport office is on the first floor. And currently, what people do is they go to the front door, they buzz the door, and then they are sent around to the side door, to the service door, which was the service yard of 690 Park Avenue, if they're going to the visa department. And so that door, which is not accessible width, they go in that door, they go into a yard, and they go down a set of stairs into the cellar level of the service courtyard. on the west side of the building, and then they enter into the visa office. If they're going to the passport office, they go through the front door and they go up a set of stairs which are inaccessible. There's a fold down handicap lift which does not work terribly well. And so the goal of this project is to improve accessibility at this rear yard door, and to provide access both down to the visa office and up to the passport office. So my proposal has a few aspects. We seek to widen this door by a couple of inches to get a handicapped compliant door. The new door will also be, the existing door is black steel with some applied raised panels and a big decorative pull in the middle. We'll be replicating that door just several inches wider. We will not be obviously changing the height, since the height of the door aligns with this kind of ashlar pattern. This is the building is limestone. This back wall is sort of hodgepodgey stucco cement on concrete block. Similarly, on this facade, there's a coil of razor wire, which is remarkably inappropriate for for the Upper East Side to have a roll of razor wire. So my proposal is to remove that razor wire and to install a black wrought iron decorative set of spikes. The consulate still needs to maintain the security over that wall because it is a relatively low wall, but we'd like to do that without razor wire. The next aspect then, and what's visible from the street, is there are two windows here that face west into the service courtyard. At the rearmost window, my proposal is to lower that windowsill, remove the window in the masonry opening, maintain the frame of the window, lower the windowsill down to floor height, and install a new door. So it's about a 5'6" tall window. It's with about a 4'4" sill. We're going to drop that sill down to the floor level, install again a handicap compliant door, something like an 8'2" door with a transom overhead. The transom will have a mull at the center point, which matches the dimension on the French. The window we're removing is a French casement, so it has a meeting style, and we'll match that dimension there. The windows are black, and our new door will also be black. This sort of cartoon indicates the removal of the window, the dropping of that sill, and then the new door that goes in there. And so the overall impact of this is that the rear yard, accessible from the sidewalk, with an accessible handicap lift and a stairway down and a stairway up, will sort of consolidate business and for the consulate, to both for the visa office and the passport office, both using the same door off the street. And this drawing shows the existing door, which is nominally 2'8", and so replaced with a 3'0" door. And that this shows the decorative spikes, black wrought iron spikes, 3/4" sharpened spikes that would replace the concertina wire. And then this plan, just for orientation, this plan shows you the sidewalk, the widened door that comes to a new landing, stairway down to the visa office, stairway up to the passport office, and then the door in the existing window opening at an upper landing. So it accomplishes multiple things for the consulate in terms of providing access for the community that uses the building, and also segmenting off this high traffic flow for the passport and visa office from the consular flow, which is much less high volume, and it achieves some security concern, addresses some security concerns. And then just to point out again, so this is that back window that we're converting to a door, is visible from the street down about halfway through its through the, you know, the floor level is down about there. So only the upper portion of that window to door conversion is visible from the street. And at that, I think I will be quiet.
Thank you for a very clear presentation. Anybody from the public? Do you see, Kevin?
I don't see anyone from the public, no.
Okay, well, let's go to the committee.
Elizabeth?
I think that you've got a very good solution to the problem on that particular location. I think it's better it doesn't disturb the fine building in the front, and I think it solves the problem very well and very appropriately.
Thank you.
Lionel, you have a question?
Yes, sorry, I wasn't able to lower my hand before, to raise my hand before. I'm sorry, I was a bit late. I just had a question. In the floor plan, is there no ADA accessibility, like lower and then to raise the wheelchair within the building as opposed to extending the window? If it weren't visible at all from either side of the street, I'd be fine with it. But since it's going to be visible from the other side, I was wondering if there was any possibility of having this ADA access lower as opposed to lowering this window, because
well, so the handicap lift itself is below the wall level. The handicap lift itself will not be seen from the street. The only thing that'll be seen is the conversion of the black window to a black door, a black painted door. So the only way they provide access at the front is with a fold down lift that is, you know, fold down. It's a very, very cumbersome handicap path through the front, and not exactly compliant because there's still a curb you have to get. There's still a 6-inch curb you have to get up the front. It's really a non-compliant compliance. Whereas what we're proposing is a full compliance for both levels. Currently, you know, people come in through the non-compliant door and take a non-compliant lift down to the cellar level, and we're improving accessibility for both the cellar and the first floor level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gail?
I think you've provided a very appropriate solution to ensure that the building is ADA accessible. So I can support your application.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Thank you. Yeah, good presentation. Question. On the door, on the window that's being converted to the door, since you only see half of it, will that door look like the window? Will it match that window that's existing? Because you only see half of it anyway. So the fact is, if it looks the same from the street, you won't know if it's a window or a door because the bottom comes below that wall.
Can I share my screen still? Do I have to?
No.
Okay. So the door, hold on. You guys can see the drawings?
Yep.
Yeah. So the top of the door, the top of the opening is a transom that matches the window. And then depending upon which sight line you take, if you take the near curb sight line, you know, you're entirely above that door. If you take the absolute far side of 69th Street sight line over the existing wall, you see the upper portion of the door. I would argue, let me go back, because the doors are behind because the window is behind decorative ironwork, it really just appears as black. And I think, and our new window will also have a black frame. You know, it will not exactly replicate the window, but the transom, I believe that having the transom at the upper portion is you know, a good attempt to replicate the window to replicate the existing window above the new door.
Yeah, no, I will approve this, but I don't know if you've taken it under consideration, but I was just looking at it thinking that in fact the door could be made to look like the window. I mean, I think you can make a door to look like that window. And so that's why I was asking that question. Have you considered that or not?
Probably not as fully as you are asking for it to be considered, but it can be, I think, what right now we're replicating the door that's down. We're replicating the door that's at the visa office. The passport office would have a similar door, but we could certainly look at carrying the mutton lines across and changing the division of the door a little bit so that it looked more like the window.
Great, thank you.
We can certainly study that.
Alita?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think this is a good solution. It feels like the molding around the door just is weird to end it in the middle of the door. I realize that that's the original molding. It just looks real, like it's someone with long hair. I don't know. It just looks odd to me. The other thing is, I imagine once the spikes go up that you won't see it as much anyway because they have more thickness. And yay for getting rid of razor wire. But I'm wondering if instead of those spikes, it's possible to do something a little bit more decorative with spikes on the top so it doesn't just read as some medieval castle protection system.
We can certainly look at the design of the spikes. I mean, there is a precedent on surface areas in big Park Avenue mansions like this to have some ironwork spikes, if we could get Samuel Yellen to make these for us, we would, but
yeah, I agree with you there. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Hi, thank you for this presentation. I don't have any additional questions or opposition to or have any opposition to the design of the accessibility ramp. I just wish that it was closer to the front door. And but it's so complicated with the historic buildings. And but I'm glad that the Italian consulate is considering this and making their building more accessible.
Thank you.
John?
I think you have a very good solution here.
Jane?
Thank you.
Well, that row of buildings along Park Avenue, they're so exquisitely beautiful. I walk by them all the time. I, of course, will support the application, and I want to commend the applicant. And I was amused by Alita's comment about the medieval approach of the spikes, but I will approve the application. Thank you.
Thank
you. Abraham?
Thank you. I think this is a great approach and great to improve the accessibility, Josh. Just the one thing I always just try to bring to the attention of applicants presenting any accessibility modifications or the like is just the to clarify or to just make them aware of the updated or out of date terminology. So handicap is not kind of an out of date term. So as possible, I try to just bring that to the attention. It takes some time to get used to the accessibility lift rather than the HC lift.
Yep. And I will say that Landmarks has already asked me to update the title of the full set to accessibility as opposed to handicap accessibility.
Great. Thank you. And great presentation.
Thank you.
Marco?
Thank you for the presentation. Everything is fine. I think, look, my point of view is I'm going to support this application, but I had to comment. Your solution of the enlargement of the window looks very funny. You can work it out easily with the fence. The fence you can organize much better to hide in the part. I'm not doing the design, but completely I'm very unhappy with that part, but I will support. I don't know, when you turn right there 90 degrees, you have to have a different kind of landing in that part. So whatever it is, I will support this application, but I found that you can do better. Thank you.
Anthony and David?
Okay, I'll go first. I think, as others have noted, razor wire is not exactly welcoming for passport and visa applicants. So I think that it's a good move, and I also think that spikes in a service area are absolutely appropriate, and I think that this is a kind of appropriate and no nonsense solution to security at that low wall. I think that this is actually a pretty clever solution to a really complicated problem, ironically, which is providing accessibility to probably the most public part of the consulate. And so I certainly will support this.
Thank you.
I have very little to add, and I completely agree about the spikes. I think they're fine. I think that maintaining the frame around the top of the door, you're going to see it from the exterior. So I think there is some symmetry to the way you're going to see the frames. And when you enter the door, it will be sort of a unique experience to see that frame, the door set within the frame. And yet you're also going to see why, because you're going to see it against the window. So I think that sometimes you have serendipitous results, and I happen to think that this one is just fine. So I wouldn't change the door, and obviously we have to vote on this as shown, and the architect obviously has two ideas from us, but I think the way it is perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Move to approve as presented.
Sounds good to me. Second it.
Okay, unmuting everyone. Okay, Elizabeth,
Yes,
Gail,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Alita,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Abraham,
Yes.
and Marco.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yes. Okie doke. All right. Our fourth and final application this evening is 57 East 73rd Street, which is a Queen Anne style building designed by John G. Prague and once again, and constructed 1885 to 1886. The application is to expand an existing penthouse on the existing roof, creating an unenclosed covered terrace above the expanded penthouse and existing roof with an enclosed storage cabana and the use of use the roof of the covered terrace as an uncovered terrace above. And is the applicant here somewhere?
Yes, hi. My name is Damiano Geraci. I'm the architect on this project. And I can share my screen if we're ready.
That would be great.
Okay. Is everyone seeing the plot plan here?
Yep.
Okay. So the location is 57 East 73rd, and the building is basically a row house. It's existing 4-story plus basement, so 5 stories. The rectangle in blue represents an existing addition to the building that's been there for many, many decades. The area hatched in red is representing the area that we are proposing to modify. And I'm just going to shift over to the site plan for a second for the survey. So again, the blue is our existing extension, the red is what we're modifying. In this area here, the area that's not shaded in blue, there is an existing set of balconies for each, excuse me, for each floor. So basically what we're doing is starting with our floor, which is the 4th floor or 5th level, including the basement. We want to enclose that balcony. So let me shift over to photographs. This is our location again. And existing block plan with existing additions. So this is a photograph of the building head on. You can see the balconies in these areas here. And the area that we are planning to enclose is our balcony at this location. And then starting from this point up, where the front of this enclosure is where our addition is going to start. So it just goes through these photographs. This is a photo from one side of the building and head on, and a photo from the other side looking towards the existing penthouse. This is from the backyard looking up at the balconies. This is the existing penthouse, which is basically one room on top of the existing building. And this is just a shot of the front facade, which we're not altering, but we're showing it for context of the building itself. We have built a mock-up, which we have shown to Landmarks already. So let me just zoom in so you can see the proportions and the extent of it. So this is a view looking south from the existing deck that exists on top of the alteration that's there, the addition that's there now. This would be looking west, looking southwest. Another shot looking towards northwest. There is a stair that will be installed at this location that will lead from the main roof up to the lower level covered terrace that we're proposing. We are showing the extensions here of where the chimney flues will be extended. Shot from northeast. Also a chimney flue extension here. So we've taken photographs along East 73rd Street so that we can show the impact of the extension and the mock-up from the street. And starting at Madison Avenue and making our way towards Park Avenue. Basically, our building is behind the taller building here, the taller modern-looking building. As you walk down, when you get closer to the building, there really is never an opportunity to see the extension itself from 73rd Street because of being blocked by the taller building here. And as we continue our walk along, we're getting closer to our building, pretty much facing our building. And then as we get to Park Avenue, again, we have another tall building at Park Avenue that's blocking the view to our location. As we walk along Park Avenue, and we're across the street on the east side of the of Park, there is an alleyway between the two tall buildings where you are able to see just a bit of the extension. You're basically seeing the rear facade of our extension in this location here. And the only place you can really see it, we've kind of done a study of the areaway under the canopy of the building across the street. If you're walking within this triangle, that's really where you'll be able to see the extension, because otherwise you're either blocked by the canopy or blocked by other buildings. And just a shot here of what you're seeing beyond our building. Anything that we build, anything that we build will actually be blocking a part of this modern building, which there's nothing really pretty about that facade at all. So we're figuring that anything's better than that, and we think what we're proposing will be a good addition to it. Right of this red line here is our neighbor, who is proposing an extension on their roof similar to ours. Just a shot from where we would see their extension. That blue area would be their extension. And some close-ups of the mock-up that they built as well, which also helps to block that building. But again, I think we'll actually be blocking more of it because we're a bit taller. So I'm going to just go into this existing conditions axionometric here. So as it stands, again, this is our penthouse. And what we're proposing is basically to take this balcony here and enclose it, which becomes this area. And then we extend up the 2 stories. This is the 4th floor, the penthouse area. This mass is the cabana, which you'll see in floor plan later on. It's a cabana, and it's just a small space where we can store lawn furniture and deck chairs, etc. And then there's a covered terrace at this level with a stairway that leads to a completely open terrace at the level above. We have some in-progress renderings of the proposal. So you can see that it's basically open when you're looking south. That's the open covered terrace portion of it. The upper roof completely open. And though we're still working on getting the colors correctly, our intention is to match the colors of the existing building that's there now, so that we just want it to blend into a seamless whole, so that nothing looks out of place or looks new once it's completely fabricated. So again, zooming in from Park Avenue, where we would see that facade, you're basically seeing our extension here, blocking a significant portion of the building behind us. This is a drawing of the existing rear elevation and our neighbors to the east and west. And this is our proposal. A section of the building as it exists now. So this is the existing penthouse here, I'm circling in red. And the new addition would be the area that we're showing here. So in plan, we're effectively enclosing, like I said, the balcony at this level. And so this shaded area here is the enclosed balcony, and the floor above us, which is the penthouse level, this is the full extent of our extension. So it sticks out towards the back an additional 10 foot or so, and we're going full width of the building. And then these are the 2 levels. This is the unenclosed levels, the drawing below, and the open levels above, where we'll have some planting area, and we'll have to have, per the energy code, we'll have to have a planted area as well as area for us to use. So we're proposing about 200 square feet of planted area along the edges here. And then the interior roof grass top is where we use as well. And that is it.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public. I don't see any. Do you, Kevin?
Nope.
Okey doke. Then let's start with, well, we can do it in reverse order. Marco.
Thank you. I think I had to say thank you because you reduced the encroachment or the enlargement on the rear yard. That looks great. Let me ask a question. What is the total height of the building?
So let me just zoom into this area here. To the top of our open balcony would be 79.19 feet. So let's call it 79 feet.
79 feet.
79 feet top of the open terrace.
Yes, 79 feet. You know that you are in RAV and the maximum is 75.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration.
And in addition to that, usually is measure the building from the bottom, which is the street level more or less, to the height of the parapet. In this case, is the height of the fence. So it's much taller.
We will check on that, but I was aware, under the impression the parapet is not counted as the building.
It is counted.
Okay.
The other, look, my perception is very accurate, your application. It's too tall in the middle of that part, and you create some cover space, which is a floor area, by the way. Once you cover, put the roof is covered. So I think really made me uncomfortable this application, especially you leave a cover porch, a cover balcony. I don't know what you call that part, because it's completely in the middle of the space, and you see it in your own design that that's what it is. And I feel completely, personally myself, very uncomfortable with this application. Thank you.
Abraham?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Jane?
Thank you. I share Marco's concerns. It just is way too tall and out of context within the historic district. Thank you.
John?
Don't have any questions.
Sarah?
No further questions for me. Thank you.
Alita?
Thank you. I'll be brief. It's a no for me because it's way too large. I'm not sure that you cannot see it from across the street on Madison or Park. I've had the experience of the architect talking about not seeing it from one side of the building, but being able to very clearly see something from the other. So I'm just a little bit skeptical. Also, that you can cover up a building that may not be the nicest, most attractive building is not, for me, an explanation of why something should be so much taller than it really ought to be. Thank you.
Yeah, just for the record, we are saying we can see it from Park Avenue. We show the photograph where we can.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I from the alleyway, I know, but from the across the street in the opposite corner where the buildings are not blocking the view when you're crossing the street or on the sidewalk where it extends beyond the facade of the buildings and you're facing the block with the building. That's what concerns me. It just is very, very large for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yeah, for me, it's too large as well. But what are the materials that you're using?
We're matching the color of the existing construction that's there now, which is a stucco. So we're proposing to match that stucco. Let me go back to the existing. Sorry, one too far. Sorry, lost it. Yeah, here we go.
What is the color that you're matching? Can you point to it with an
Yes.
arrow?
We're zooming into, I zoomed into it for you. So we're trying to match the color of that. And also as far as texture, the building itself, it's a hard coating over masonry. So what the client had in mind basically is to, on the rear facade where it's a brick extension, can you go to that drawing for a second? We are trying to replicate the look of the brick at the rear of the building.
So you will replicate it? You're going to use brick?
We're going to use a pattern stucco.
Oh, well, it's, to my mind, it's way too tall and too bulky. So thank you.
Thank you.
Gail?
I agree with my colleagues. I think that the mass is too much and the building is much too tall. Thank you.
Elizabeth?
How wide is the building?
The building itself is, let me just go to the floor plan. 17'6".
17.6. And how tall?
We said 79 feet.
79 feet. I think you have a slight legal problem too.
Yes.
This is much too tall. And I think you're in violation of the sliver law.
Mm-hmm.
Is the bulk cantilevered over an area of the building, over a wall?
So basically we are enclosing the balcony. Let me go to the.
I thought there was a section that made it look
Yeah.
like.
Yes, that's the balcony that you're seeing. Let me go to that section. So in effect.
Right, so you're adding, you're actually extending the balcony. Is that correct?
Yes, we're basically taking the building out to the maximum of 10 feet.
Okay, because I wouldn't want to be in the balcony underneath. It's already bad enough that I have a balcony above me. And I just wanted to understand how you arrived at the bulk. I think you've done a clever solution, but I don't think I can support it.
Okay, thank you, David.
Sorry, I'm one of the owners of the building, and I just wanted to add, as Damiano, my architect, just presented, the reason I live in the historic district is because I love it. My family and I have been renovating family buildings that date back from the 1600s, so I completely love old architecture. What we're proposing here is I'm the first one in the neighborhood to be opposed to any overbuilding. But in this instance, we did go around even to Madison Avenue back and forth, Damiano and I, and you can actually see the way we found it. Landmarks came and said they didn't see anything. We invited them over, they came on the terrace, and from the terrace we could see a very small portion of Park Avenue. So we had to carefully go on Park Avenue and see in this tiny triangle where we could see it. And from Park Avenue, you have this sliver, and you have this huge brick wall from James Lennox's house. And while I agree overbuilding is not good, this would provide a transition, because what we're seeing otherwise is we're seeing these small, and then we're seeing this abrupt, huge red brick wall, which I don't know if that's better. I mean, clearly I'm biased, But I think the other one, where you have a small portion of the brick wall and it's slightly covered, it's a smoother transition when you have progressively higher buildings than just having low, and then boom, this huge modern building from the James Lennox house. So while I am also in agreement with all you're saying, in this particular case, it cannot be seen anywhere but there. And I am the first one to work with the community board and landmarks to have it look as aesthetically pleasing. Actually, the renderings are quite ugly right now because she had to leave for reasons, and then we had to find another person. So they actually look very modern and very ugly. But the idea is to have the back look as uniform and as we want to be able to think that, oh, okay, it's a larger building, but the facade was never changed, and it looks like the beautiful windows at the back. Right now we have like ugly modern windows. My wife and I prefer a more traditional style, and I think that honestly would look much better in this tiny sliver, in this triangle from Park Avenue, than having this red brick wall, especially 51, 53 East 73rd, who have been approved, and they're going to have, it was approved. During their presentation, the way I saw it, they didn't even mention that it was visible from Park Avenue. So we did our due diligence better than they did. And they have something much more modern, which they're going to build, and we're going to covering up. So I'm just
Yes. I know it's hard to believe, but it is not necessarily a good thing to cite others who may or may not have already been approved. Having said that, I think it's too tall. It's just plain too tall. And you can dress it up any way you like, but it's too tall. And this is a wonderful and very interesting building. It's got a lot of personality and character, and what you are adding to it does not have personality and character. And the fact that it is not obviously visible from the public way does not necessarily absolve you of the responsibility to your neighbors. And not only do you have neighbors in other buildings that are more or less the same size as yours is now, rather than what you're proposing, but you also have neighbors in tall buildings at the block front. And everyone will be able to see this who happens to live in that area. And I think that we put too much store, and Landmarks puts too much store by the notion of being visible from the public way. There are times when we really have to look at its impact on the block and on the neighborhood. And I also believe, this is my personal belief, that you don't actually mitigate a tall building by putting an almost as tall building in between it and some little buildings. It just doesn't work. With that, do we have a resolution? I see Marco has raised his hand.
Yes, I would like to put a motion. The motion is to disapprove as presented. Anybody can second? Thank you.
Second.
We have a number of seconds, so I think we should go to a vote, and we can do that back to front again.
All right, I'm unmuting everyone. This is a motion to disapprove. Marco?
No, yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Jane, you have your hand raised?
I do, because I have an item for new business.
Okay. David?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
and Elizabeth.
Yes,
Jane, I'm very well aware of your hand. First, I have to ask if there's any old business. No old business. So now we have new business. And I see one hand raised. So Jane? Jane?
I think I have to be unmuted. Have I
You
been
are
un-
unmuted.
Oh, sorry. I'm so
No
sorry.
problem.
I know the hour is late, but I want to commend the board office for including in the news clips last week the item about Northeastern University merging with Marymount College. Full disclosure, I live across the street from Marymount. I just wanted to get it on everyone's radar that this is a John Russell Pope building. It's not an individual landmark. It's not within a historic district, but it is nonetheless a very significant building within the Upper East Side. And I just had hoped that it could be on the agenda as new business, but there was some, I don't know, misunderstanding that it was inappropriate to actually have it written down under new business. But at some point, I would like this committee to consider asking the full board or asking the chair to draft a brief note to the president of Northeastern pointing out the historic significance of this beautiful John Russell Pope building. He designed many, many notable buildings in the United States and in our wonderful city. And his most noteworthy commission was, of course, for the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. So I just want to make sure this is on everyone's radar. I would not have known about it if it had not been in the news clips that the board office sent around to everyone. And I have Googled Northeastern and I've also Googled Marymount, and there have been a number of news stories. I know also that Marymount was really on the front, how does one say it, on the front burner, because it did go to Julie Menon's office to advise them that there was going to be the merger before it was actually released in the press. So thank you to all of you for your patience and understanding, and I will continue to pursue this.
Thank you, Jane. Does anybody else want to comment on this?
No, I don't think we have to. I think it's good that we brought it up. And we can at some future date when we can invite Marymount Northeastern to come and talk to us.
I see Alita's hand is up, Anthony.
Alita, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that tomorrow is the land use meeting, voting on the city of Yes, I think, or discussing it. And I would just ask if someone with more knowledge than I have on this committee could address the provisions that relate to landmarks and historic districts and transfer of air rights, because there are some people who may not be as enthusiastic about the need to keep our historic districts and landmarks without intruding on them from tall buildings. So if someone could be clear about the reason for that, I think it would be really helpful. I intend to vote no on everything, and I'll just stop there. Thank you, David and Anthony.
Yeah, no, I'll just comment that I just as a point of information, and that the arrangement between Marymount and Northeastern will not be effect accompli until at least 2 years from now. It will take that long for them to gain the accreditation. And that has been reported in the paper. So I think we do have time.
Great.
However, I think Jane's point is well taken. And I also think Anthony's suggestion that we invite Northeastern and Marymount to tell us how they're thinking about using the building might be a good way to get it going, maybe sooner rather than later. So that we have it under.
Thank you.
Fade it out.
And as far as the issue with City of Yes, we have two people who are on the zoning committee, and Anthony and Marco. Do either of you have an opinion on what Alita raised? and Michelle raised.
Well,
Marco?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
Mark.
ahead, go ahead, Anthony, please.
I was just going to say that that this is a topic. How do I put that? This is a bad idea, and I think it expands the transferability of landmark properties much further, and will allow for even further concentration of tall buildings on the avenues and certainly some of the side streets. So I think that this will come up tomorrow, and I suspect that this will be one of the things that that will in fact be controversial. Basically, the current development rights transfer for landmarks allows for buildings that are adjacent to a landmark, across the street, directly across the street, or directly across the street, or directly behind the landmark. In other words, a transfer to, it's sort of like touching. And what this will allow is for the landmarks floor area to be transferred to beyond the entire block. So if you imagine the island of a block that that a landmark is sitting in, you can go across the street from the landmark, along the whole block, across behind the landmark, and then across the street behind the landmark, and then also to the opposite sides of the street at the end of at the avenue ends of the block. So it increases, and there was actually a very good diagram that I'm sure I can't find offhand that really demonstrated the potential effect of this. And at the last, it was our last meeting, wasn't it, Elizabeth?
I think so.
Yeah, at our last meeting, I showed an example that ironically included the Colonial Dames building, which is next door to Marymount, and how that could transfer and effectively double the size of a building on Second Avenue by the use of the affordable housing plus the transit improvement bonuses. So it's the building went for 50%.
And the removal of the FAR cap.
That's right. And then the removal of the FAR cap makes it
There's
even.
so many bad ideas, one can't remember them all.
That's
still.
right. But anyway, so I think that it's I don't know whether we're going to be able to show pictures tomorrow evening or not, but I think this is an idea that potentially is a threat to another idea that isn't well thought out, and it maybe is the best way to put it.
Anthony, it seems if you've found an article with a diagram, maybe it's worth taking a few minutes and seeing if you can re-find it.
Yes, I will do that.
There's
and
nothing
send that
like the
over.
picture.
I think, hang on.
Sarah, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I think what might be helpful is gosh, I think it was Alita. Alita, were you the one who said that who asked for an explanation of the importance of landmarks?
Yes.
That it's not just that landmarks are important, but there's this false narrative that that preservation is preventing and obstructing housing and new housing development. And in our district, the best way to preserve and maintain affordable housing is to preserve existing affordable housing, because the new developments never generate enough housing to replace the units that are destroyed through the development. And So I think that those points need to be made. There are a lot of folks on our board who are committed to housing accessibility, but preservation and historic districts aren't the problem.
Well, there's also a movement, and then I actually have to leave the meeting, but there's also a movement to blame zoning for everything. The Atlantic had an article about people are lonely because they no longer have dining rooms, and they no longer have dining rooms because of zoning. So therefore, zoning is responsible for people's loneliness, and that's how far it's gone. And there are a lot of people who do believe there should be no zoning. So it's all mixed up together. I do think that Sarah's point is very important to make. Maybe you can make it on Wednesday, tomorrow, Sarah.
So they're not changing Anthony, go ahead.
I do have, these are a couple of slides, I promise, just a couple, from the presentation that I gave at the last zoning and development. And so I'm going to share my screen, I hope. Did that work?
Not yet. There it goes.
Okay. So basically, not to over talk this. This is the text is interesting, but this shows the sort of way that the transfer of development rights is currently applied, so that here's your landmark, the red, and then the sort of dark pink are those lots to which you could transfer unused floor area. And this is what is proposed. Same landmark. You can go across the street, but all the way to the end of the block, and then across the street at the far end of the block. So it potentially changes much more of the character and personality of the whole neighborhood, and potentially begins to isolate landmarks into these sort of tiny, this sort of a midget building surrounded by giants. And then the example that I alluded to was this, in which I did very crude arithmetic based on the Colonial Dames, the Richard Henry Dana house, and its transfer not to its neighbor or the neighbor behind, but all the way to the end of the block on 2nd Avenue. I know it's unfair. I chose 2nd Avenue because you can also get a transit bonus. And so this is essentially, you have a building that could be currently 50,000 square feet, could be brought up to 80,000 square feet. And the existing building actually happens to be only 22,000 square feet. So the difference that the landmark, the floor area from the landmark might be the difference between a developer choosing to do this and finding it financially rewarding and not doing anything at all. And so I think that anyway, that was it. I thought it was a bad idea. And these were a couple of ways of showing that it can work to the detriment of everyone.
Thank you, Anthony. Anybody else have anything to add?
Yeah, I can do that.
You want to add something, Marco?
Yes. I think in landmark district, basically, I call the dancing of the air rights. They transfer whatever they want. There is an attraction, but there is nothing that tells a silence to produce affordable housing. So what happened right now in the unprotected district, usually they transfer the air rights. They preserve substandard of housing is in most of the cases, and they don't do any improvement. However, they cash in money. And it looks like a more for money rather to produce affordable housing. The deficit of affordable housing is huge. The approach is wrong. It's too little, too late. They saying 100,000 units in 15 years. However, the Blasio administration, he claimed at the end of his administration, after 10 years is 140,000 units. So they are doing even less when they're supposed to do more. Now, I think my major concern is if you transfer the air rights, you are no guarantee that you're going to produce affordable housing, not even middle income housing. They just is going to be just only for luxury, large apartments. That is the trend that happened in unprotected districts. They build just only between 25 to 55% of the total floor area. So let's imagine that it's 100 apartments that is possible to build. The only is going to build is 54 apartments or 25 apartments. We saw that one application that came to the community board for transportation at 79th Street. I think you know very well this architect, David, 79 and Madison. They asked just only to relocate the bus stop. That building is huge, 16 apartments. So basically the issue is, we're going to create affordable housing, or we're gonna basically create just only luxury housing. And I think it's wrong approach, wrong policy. It has to create opportunities for all, not only luxury, not only low income, but it has to create opportunities for all. I think that is the big problem, and the approach that they're doing is wrong. The Community Board 8 is one of the most densest city community board in the planet, because Community Board 3 did a study, a not-for-profit organization, and they compare Community Board 3 with 98,000 people per square miles, and they compare with the 20 cities, largest cities, and they said we are more dense than them. But they don't mention the Upper East Side, because the Upper East Side, we have 111,000 people per square mile. So the approach is too low, too little. They don't know what are they doing. And the only thing is, they said that they're going to avoid gentrification. That's exactly what they're doing. They said they're going to produce affordable. They are not producing affordable housing. So everything is wrong. They said they're going to develop and accord in the direction with the mass transit. They don't do that. Community Board 8 has exactly the same traffic, the same mass transportation like the Community Board 11, and the Community Board 11 is zoning R7, Community Board 8 are 10. And I can continue, and I will do it tomorrow. And thank you.
Jane?
I'll be really quick. First of all, am I unmuted? I wanted to commend Anthony for his brilliant example of showing the transfer of air rights from that Colonial James, that beautiful house, over all the way 2 blocks away. It's absolutely scary, but we're also forgetting how much money lobbyists and land use law firms are making from all of this. Anyway, I'm with Alita. I'm voting no on all proposals. I have to sign off. Thank you to everyone. What an interesting meeting.
Okay, I think we can all sign off this discussion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good night.
Good night.